Well, it's garden time in the Northern Hemisphere, and in many places, plants are starting to awaken from the slumber of winter. In addition to carefully chosen and planted seedlings, there's also volunteers springing up everywhere. There seems to be any sort of patch of soil. We often call these volunteers weeds, but what is a weed? Now, this is our last session of the series Herb of the Week that has been exploring the healing natures of many of what I and others consider as weeds, but we're learning. I hope you have come to really appreciate what that word means and exactly the nature of what makes that up. So, for this last segment of Herb of the Week, Garden Volunteer Series, we will be exploring the weed that ate Alabama, and it's called kudzu. Now, kudzu is truly the bane of, I would say, the southeastern aspect of the United States, and it's spreading, but there's a lot here, and I want to go over some of the positive aspects of this, and it's called Pararia montana. That is the Latin binomial for kudzu. And the name kudzu um, is really comes from a Japanese term because this is an Asian plant, and we'll be learning more about how that is used. But Pararia montana is a species of the plant in the botanical family of Fabaceae, which is the pea family, the bean family. And there's three subspecies. They're closely related, and the one that we'll be looking at, particularly because it's pretty prolific in the southeast part of the United States, it's Pararia montana. And there's, subtle differences in different members of this plant family, but for our purposes, this is what we'll be looking at. Now, the root, flower, and leaf have been used as medicine, particularly in Asian cultures. This is kind of a recent transplant to the United States, and kudzu contains ingredients that might counteract the effects of alcohol. It also has some estrogenic effects. So some people are saying that it helps manage the effects of menopause, some of the side effects of menopause, and how it counteracts the effects of alcohol is it kind of takes away the desire for it. It doesn't eradicate it, but the studies are saying that people that are taking kudzu start reducing the amount that they're drinking, and eventually they don't feel the need to drink it anymore. So that's kind of a wonderful thing. This plant is also rich in antioxidants. So anything that antioxidants does, this plant does. And that means it protects heart health. It can be seen as a preventing cancer, all kinds of lovely, lovely things. Anything that antioxidants do, this is what this plant. And it also definitely helps the liver be more efficient. Now, the long tradition of using kudzu comes from the traditional Chinese and traditional Japanese um, medical paradigms. And in Chinese, it's called gogen, and they call it radix perariae, which basically means the root of this plant. And the qualities are that it's sweet and pungent. It enters the spleen, lung, and stomach meridians. And this is really good for conditions called exterior conditions. And in Western medicine terminology, we would understand that as catching a cold, So this will, what they call, push it out. And it also does something which is really lovely. It generates fluids, which means It's been studied in terms of looking at thirst in people with diabetes. It also promotes urination, and it's used to counteract fevers. It's also been used in different types of diarrhea. And the issue with diarrhea, if you're using traditional Chinese herbs for diarrhea, you really need to know what kind of diarrhea you have. If you go to acupuncture school, you'll study something called Shanhan Lung and memorize a chart with 60 different types of diarrhea. So it's beyond the scope of our little video here. But if you have diarrhea due to spleen deficiency, and you also, this is a really wonderful remedy for that. So sometimes this can be really useful. This herb is used in a lot of different formulas. One of the more famous one is called Gegen Tang. Tang is basically the Chinese word for tea or decoction. So it's used quite prolifically in traditional Chinese medicine. Um, this is, as you can see, it kind of looks almost like marshmallows there. It's harvested in the autumn and winter. They cut the roots into thick slices, and they do this while it's fresh, and then they dry these roots. And it's also used for these exterior conditions like headaches, stiff neck, back pain, um, diarrhea, dizziness, all sorts of things. It's a really wonderful remedy. It's so sad that it's eating Alabama because it's a wonderful herb, actually. Now, if you want to take kudzu or gugen, I highly recommend getting a good workup by a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner, either an acupuncturist or an herbalist, just to make sure that you need this herb. You can get it in chunks, the root in chunk form. You can also get the leaves dried. You can get the flowers dried. You can get the powdered root. This is often a way that a lot of people try to take this plant. You can get it in tincture form. The black little balls up there, those are Chinese tea pills, which, this one is actually a formula. It's not just the pure gugen. And another way that is really wonderful that I used a lot in my practice is the manufacturers make a tea and then they freeze dry it. So it's kind of like freeze dried coffee, but it's in the Chinese herb form, and you can mix these different powders together to create a formula, and then you just have your patient put a couple spoonfuls in some warm water and drink it down. Because sometimes cooking the Chinese formulas is a little bit beyond most of us with, we just don't have a lot of time or equipment to do that. So these are the different ways that you can take this wonderful herb. Now, when I say the weed that ate Alabama, it's really true. And a lot of United States Departments of Agriculture consider this an invasive weed. They've got all kinds of not great ways to get rid of it. This slide here is basically, it's by a gentleman named Scott Earhart. And this is kudzu growing on trees in Atlanta, Georgia, in Piedmont Park. And this is next to a large drainage ditch next to a railroad track. Literally goes a foot a day. So when we say it eats things up, it's quite amazing. Now, the environmental and ecological damage basically results from the fact that the plant outcompetes other natural native plants, and it, basically crowds them out. It competes with native plants for light, and blocks their access by growing over them and shading them with its leaves. And a lot of native plants die because of this. Um, it's just it also makes leaf litter more labile, and it lessens carbon sequestration ability of the soil. So this is not really good for climate change. Now I'm just going to read a few from an article on the website of the Nature Conservancy. This plant is known as a mile a minute, the vine that ate the South, and it's native to Japan and Southwest China. And it was actually first introduced in the United States during the Philadelphia Centennial Exposition in 1876, where it was touted as a great ornamental plant. From the 30s through the 50s, the Soil Conservation Service, and remember, this is the time of the Great Dust Bowl. Okay, so the Soil Conservation Service promoted it as a great tool for soil erosion and control and was planted all over the American South. But it grows out of control through runners, stems, the root at the tip, and that's the medicinal part actually that the Chinese use. And once established, it grows at a rate of 1 foot per day and can grow up to 100 feet. Now, newer, smaller patches can be controlled with persistent weeding. Okay, a lot of the sources that you read about are like, oh, just plant, spray everything with whatever horrible herbicide that you can think of. But if you find a small patch of it, that's why I'm not giving anybody gardening tips for kudzu. If you weed and pull up those runners and you can use them as medicine, and keep up with it, that's a great way to keep it out of your, garden or your farm. But a wonderful way to get rid of it is let goats go for it. And I've listed a really fun video on a farm in the Carolinas that uses goats. They basically rent out their goats, which go and eat kudzu to their heart's content. And the goats are thrilled, and so are the farmers. And it's a wonderful, non-toxic, ecologically safe way to get rid of invasive kudzu. So, however you have encountered this plant, because I've spent most of my life on the West Coast, we don't seem to have been invaded by this yet in North America. But if you do find it in your garden, you just get yourself a goat and everybody will be happy. But you can also use those runners, and you can make some pretty amazing medicine out of it. So, this is Stephanie Georgiev saying thank you so much for spending your valuable time with me. I want to thank everybody who has helped to make these videos a reality for the last couple of years. We're going to be changing the format on the Botanical Medicine Study Course channel. And if you would like to continue to get Herb of the Week, for private viewing, you can become a member of the Patreon community for the Botanical Medicine Study Course. And for $5 a month, which is less than one wonderful coffee drink at your favorite coffee drink place, just one drink, you'll be getting incredible information about different herbs. And I also get out a weekly update on everything you possibly could want to know about botanical medicine in terms of research, industry news, etc. So this is Stephanie Georgiev saying once again, thank you for your valuable time. And until next time, be well.